Hello, my name is Anna Karis,
My name is Kenneth Hardcastle. How's
and we,
everybody doing today?
oh,
I guess you can't answer me, but you know.
that's true. Yes, we are here to talk about A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, which is the virtual library book club pick of September. And we posted some discussion questions last Friday. So we're going to talk about those questions now. And then next week, we will have a in-person Zoom meeting where we can talk further about the book. So did
Yeah,
you to start things off, Kenneth?
sure.
Okay.
So this month we read A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith, and it's the story of Francie Nolan growing up at the turn of the century in Brooklyn, New York. And so it starts, she's about 11, and it goes to when she's about 16. And over those years, life happens to her. Uh, the the rhythm of life and death, and um, just living in a popular city.
It reminded me a lot of reading books like Little Women and Little House on the Prairie, only in the regard that it talked about daily life, like what they ate, where they
Mhm.
lived, what they wore. It was very detail specific, and I found that most pleasing. I don't know, I'm weird that way. So, yeah,
One significant part of it is that Francie and her family are very poor.
yes.
Um, and that's most of the struggle. Francie surviving in those conditions, like the tree that grows outside her tenement building on the fire escape, where nothing else can grow. Um, and so, yeah, they're very poor, and that's the struggle of living through that and finding a way out of it.
Mhm. Yep. And the whole metaphor of the tree is that even a tree can grow in such a inhospitable place. And just like Francie can grow up and become something and better her circumstances. Um, but let's take a look at some of the questions. The first one is, why is A Tree Grows in Brooklyn considered a classic? What gives it lasting power that we are reading it almost a century later? What did you think?
So it was written in 1943, was it?
Probably, I think.
That it came out during World War II and was actually one of the most popular books read in the service. That um, a lot of soldiers read it and really expressed their gratitude to Miss Smith about it.
Hmm.
Um, and I mean that's part of it, isn't it? And we talked about this last month a bit. Uh, what was it we read last month?
The Vanishing Act of Esme Lennox.
Right. So it goes into detail on kind of generations, how her grandmother Mary Romilly lived, how her mother Katie Nolan lives, how Francie lives, and how her younger sister, maybe any kids she's going to have eventually, are going to live in that same way. Um, so it's just how generations pass, uh, things change, things stay the same, um, and it's really compelling about that. It just has a compelling picture about what life is like.
Yeah.
What did you?
Oh, well, I actually thought a lot about my grandmother when I was reading this book because she was born in 1915. And that's like about 15 years younger than Francie is, but still, it's within a comparable amount of time. She also, was born in a city. She was born in Minneapolis, not quite Brooklyn, but they weren't rich. I don't think they were poor necessarily. My great-grandfather had a job as a leather cutter, so he always had, solid work, unlike Francie's father, who did part-time work as a singing waiter. But it really made me think a lot about her and what her life was like and how different it is from the upbringing that I had, and yet how there are similarities as well. We both had a strong sense of family, a strong sense of where we had come from, what our heritage was. There were a lot of just traditions and things, especially around holiday times, that I think that we followed that were, a continuity of life. So I think that's why the book resonated with me so much. I think that I was very close to my grandmother, and I think a lot about, the stories she told me about her growing up and how it was similar to Francie's experience in a city. Just that was pretty much what I thought about that.
So you see her father Johnny and her mother Katie, and we find out about them in great detail. The narrator is kind of omniscient in that way, and you see where both of their good and bad qualities are handed down to their children.
Sure.
It's just really interesting.
Yeah.
And that in a way that rings true. So
I agree.
That's why people still read it.
I also think
13th.
The interesting thing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
It came up 13th in the list of the Great American Read.
Oh, yes, that's right.
100 books in a competition to pick America's favorite one, and it was 13th on that list.
Yeah, that's awesome. The thing I was going to say was that I think that you were mentioning about how a lot of the GIs in World War II were reading this book. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that it was sort of memories of their own childhood, because they would have, maybe not grown up quite at that time. They're maybe a little later, like my grandmother was, like born in 1915 or so, or 1920. But it was something comforting to them and something that they could take with them and remind them of home. I think that might have had a lot to do with it. And I really love that. I didn't know that. I'm glad you shared that with us. Okay, so second question. Why do some people like Francie escape poverty while others do not? What can we learn from the Nolans that would apply to modern day poor? Which is a question fraught with pitfalls.
That's a huge question, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Why do some people like Francie escape poverty? Well, spoilers, come on.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to.
It's kind of an idealized story in that respect.
Yeah.
In that, well, they scrape the whole book through, and her go-gettingness, Francie's ambition, I guess you might say, is kind of giving them a way up by the fact that she's getting such a big salary and getting promoted frequently in whatever roles she finds.
Ambition and her intelligence, I think, has a lot to do with it.
For sure.
Yeah.
So I mean so they were on their way up even before the savior comes in the end that wants to make her mother rich by marrying her.
Right.
So I mean, at the same time, you can't just say that hard work will get it, will get you ahead.
No, because I mean, yeah, there's
doing that the whole time.
There's the example of Willie Flitman, Aunt Evie's husband, who hated his job. And even though he worked really hard at it, the horse was horrible to him on his milk truck run. And later on, he
Well, he was
became,
horrible with a horse.
yeah, he was
There's
horrible to the horse,
a give and take.
in fairness, yes. But I mean, he was somebody that, went to work every day and worked hard. And, he always considered himself to be a failure. And even at the end, he just kind of disappeared with his one-man band outfit. That was kind of cute. I mean,
Aunt Sissy was a riot.
yes, Aunt Sissy was excellent. I loved her. I guess though that what we can apply to modern day poor is that I think what we can see is that there is a cycle that is extremely hard to break out of.
Yes.
And you have to be, not only do you have to work hard, sometimes people just don't escape, and there's nothing they can do about it. I mean, there were people that were poorer than the Nolans in this story, and they didn't have any sort of chance. I mean, I think Betty Smith really drove home the point that education is the ticket out of poverty.
Mm-hmm.
And
so she made her mother's family really drive hard on that.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, I don't know. It's poverty is a huge problem, and there are no easy answers to it. So
that was savage. How her mother was like, "All right, Neely doesn't want to go to school. Francie wants to go to school." I keep wanting to call her Franny.
I know.
So obviously, Neely has to go to school.
Yes, because that's fair. Yeah, I know. But it worked out in the end. I mean, Francie.
And she was right.
Yeah, she was right. She was absolutely right.
Francie would find it, would make it happen for herself anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, and she did.
She did, yes. And she got to go to college, which was even better than high school.
It would have been, yes.
Yes.
High school, I don't think actually had much for Francie.
No, you're right. I mean, she made the point herself after she got the job being the newspaper clipper, where she would read 200 newspapers a day, that there wasn't much a teacher could tell her about history or politics or current events that she didn't already know.
Yeah. And not to mention the social aspect of high school, which is social aspects, not really Francie's thing.
No, she was very much a loner. She didn't make friends easily, which was interesting because her younger brother did. I think she was probably more like her mother in that respect. I think her mother was very much a loner as well.
Yes, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Only had her sisters.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Like. Mm-hmm. Okay, so question 3. Francie's heritage is described as strong women of invisible steel on her mother's side and weak but talented on her father's side. By the end of the book, how are Francie and Neely both alike and different from their parents?
Well, yeah, we just started talking about that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a natural topic of conversation in this book. Francie has the steel of her mother, and Neely has the lovable side of his father.
Mm-hmm.
I also see much of the flexible side of Francie or the hard side of Neely, but it's there.
Well, I think you see the soft side of Francie when she falls in love with Lee and he turns around and dumps her so unceremoniously, in such a cruel way too. I think that shows her wish, to be recognized as a human being and to be understood. And that was what I took, what she got from her father, that kind of that wish to be understood, because I think her father very much wanted to be understood as well, and he felt he never was for whatever reason. Whereas her mother didn't have time for that. Right?
Right. And she was very sentimental Francie was.
Right.
Obviously, we were privy to most of her in-depth thoughts,
Yes.
less so with all the other characters.
Correct.
Uh, Conspicuously absent, I think, was Neely. We didn't really get much of his inner monologue, if at all.
No, we didn't. The only thing we got was that Francie said that he didn't like all the mushy stuff. Like she would want to go
Right.
hug him, and he would probably say, "No, thank you."
So
So,
Francie was very sentimental, like her father,
like her
and
father, yes.
Neely was reserved, more like his mother, in that,
Right.
at least as far as we could see.
But Neely also had the musical talent of his father,
Yep.
and he also had the social aspects. He had lots of friends that he used to hang out with, and Francie never really had any friends of any sort while she was in school or even after she went to work. So I'm interested, I would be
But
interested
Francie
to,
and John were
Mhm.
favorites of each other, and Neely and Katie were favorites of each
Right,
other. So.
exactly. Yes. Okay, and the last question, Betty Smith paints the American dream in quote, in not quotation marks, but capital letters, as living better than your parents did. Is this still the American dream? How does this pursuit of life both help and hurt the characters in the novel or people who live today?
That's linked to the poverty thing,
Yeah,
um, for sure. And it's not a stretch to say that all or most parents want something better for their children than what they had.
fair
Um,
assessment.
is that still the American dream? I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, I think especially post World War II, when there was such an economic boom in the country and all of the baby boomer children were basically given everything they wanted by the greatest generation. Um, I think from that point on, I don't know. I think that the gap has closed, whereas people like my grandmother who lived through the Great Depression, um, definitely their children did much better than they did when they were growing up. They had much better circumstances. They had better clothes, better food, better housing, all sorts of different things. But I think that gap has shrunk as time has moved forward. So as what my parents had when they were kids is really not all that different from what I had when I was a kid. At least that's how I feel. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's flexibility in that definition. Like parents want better for their children than what they had, but that's not necessarily more stuff, you know?
Right.
More richer life, more experiences, more fulfillment. Um, but I think now with a broad middle class, that's not necessarily, um, always going to be more money.
No, I think education again plays into this.
Yeah.
Neither one of my parents went to college, and I was the first one in my family to get a college degree. So that was a big thing. But other than that, I mean, my parents, I think financially, I mean, I'm doing about the same as what they did. So see what
Mhm.
college did. Yay.
And that's kind of a big theme nowadays with college is it worth the effort?
Is it worth the money, first of all?
Yeah, well, yeah, not the effort, the money specifically.
Yeah. And
Like
what do
how
you
can
get
you
in return for it? I think the returns are diminishing on that as more and more people get college degrees as it becomes more commonplace. And now it's getting a graduate degree that shoots you up over the top. And even that will become obsolete, I think, in time.
and does it really shoot you over the top? I mean, in theory it does, but
In theory, it does,
is it
but
actually worthwhile?
not in every case. No,
Right.
that's true. So,
Most
what
of us
were,
with graduate degrees, several even.
yeah. So, what were your takeaways from the book? What did you like the most?
I think it was just that analysis again, as same as in Vanishing Activism Lennox, the analysis of generational trends, how people act. That's something I've been thinking a lot about recently.
Hmm.
My grandfather died last month,
Mm.
and I've just been wondering what traits I share with him. Now that
What you will carry on into the future.
an opportunity to reflect on that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And look
Yeah,
back
and
into ancestry and genealogy and figure out like what did I share with that great 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 grandmother.
yeah, it's funny. It's like we are the extensions of them. We take in things, lessons that they've taught us, and we put those forward out into the world. But yeah, I mean, even physical traits and stuff. I mean, I have gray eyes, right? And nobody in my family has gray eyes, except for I found my great grandfather's World War I draft card, and it was listed that he had gray eyes. I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. Now I know where it comes from.
All
So
right.
yeah, I dig the genealogical aspect of it, and looking at generations and seeing how they play out.
Anything else you liked about it?
Oh, I love this book from top to bottom. I did when I first read it when I was 19, and I still love it today, which is interesting because um, I find that a lot of the books that I read when I was in my late teens, early 20s that I have reread now, I don't like anymore because for one reason or another. Um, and I think it's just a testament to Betty Smith and her storytelling that I still love this book as much as when I first read it. Um,
I thought it was interesting how there was quite a lot said about Jews
oh yeah,
in the book.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so that, and of course, it wasn't from a place of malice in Francie. She didn't know any better. She was,
No,
uh, to an extent, either Betty Smith was relating what happened in the time period,
yeah. I think
or
it was just a historical snapshot of what life was like. I don't,
right,
I don't think she was reflecting poorly on people of Jewish ethnicity. I think it was
right.
more of a, this is,
That's what happened.
yeah, this is what happened. This is how
She
it
didn't.
was.
She certainly didn't throughout the novel stray away from evil and uh, uh, the bad people in life.
No,
She told about them like when Francie was attacked in the hallway.
right. Yes.
Um, but that was kind of an initial impression. Her talk about Jews. That was like kind of like whoa, kind of turned me
Yeah.
away.
Yeah. And something that was published in 1945, of course, is going to probably have something like that in it.
Yeah,
You just have to be
a
mindful
different a
of
different time for sure.
the environment in which she was writing. Yeah. Okay. Anything else burning to say about this book?
I'll have a lot to say during the conversation, I think.
Okay, you heard him, folks. He's got a lot to say next week. So I guess we will say thanks for watching. And if you want to join the Zoom book discussion, please email me directly at the email address I'm going to put in the links below. So I can send you an invitation to the Zoom chat. And we will see you then. It's going to be on Friday, September 25th at 12 o'clock p.m.
Be there.
Okay, it's good to see you all.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
Bye.